Hi and welcome to the St John's Grammar Learning Early series. I'm Jodie Benvenist, a psychologist, parenting author and the director of parentwellbeing.com. And last episode we talked about comparing your child to other children and how that's not always very helpful. And we came up with some very good tips. I hope you found them useful. And we've got more great tips for you today because we're talking about that very vexing, challenging topic of behaviour and discipline with your child. But fortunately, we've got some great teachers and parents from St John's Grammar to help us with some great ideas. I'd like to introduce you to Amanda, who's the Extension Support Teacher here, who is also a parent at the school. We have Melissa, who's the Deputy Principal, and we have Mark, who is the Learning Coordinator and IT Teacher. So welcome everyone. So I know that this is a really challenging topic for parents. I think sometimes it helps to talk about why behaviour and discipline is so important, why it's really important to teach kids good behaviour and discipline. What do you think, Amanda?
I think it stems to how you'd like your children to be in the future. In a classroom situation, obviously, certain behaviours help us when we're learning, and in a family situation, certain behaviours are going to help the family cohesiveness as well. So having those clear expectations from the start really help the family, the social situation.
And there's a difference, isn't there, Melissa, between behaviour and separating the behaviour and the child?
Yes, that's right. So it's really important when you're addressing some behaviour with a child that they understand that it's about the choices that they've made and not who they are as a person.
Yeah.
And then they're able to look at that more critically and reflectively and not feel like if they address that behaviour then it's changing who they are as a person as well.
Yeah.
So very important.
Yeah, and Mark, do you find that values that helps to teach kids behaviour? How does that work?
Yes, I do. I guess a good example is at St John's a few years ago we decided to underpin our behaviour management with a system of values that we all agreed on, and we involved the students in this too and came up with the slogan of CARES, which stands for courtesy, awareness, responsibility, empathy and service. And by highlighting those qualities, we then were able to work out what sort of behaviours we're trying to encourage. Yeah. And I think it really helps to have that as a really well-known set of principles, if you like. Yeah. And from there you set your specific expectations.
And so what sorts of things do you actually do in the classroom to use? You've got your values, you've got CARES. How do you actually use behaviour management strategies in the classroom? Amanda?
Setting rules again helps, but I think intrinsically kids want to be good.
Yeah.
That's the basis where I work from all the time as a parent and as a teacher. Yeah. And I think the more opportunities you have to catch them doing good things, the better you can build up the relationship. So you're actually rewarding positive behaviour instead of taking away from situations or removing things from their life if you're not rewarding that sort of behaviour. So things in the classroom might use sticker charts or little reward cards or those sorts of things, which doesn't have to be a big thing, but it gives that child a sense of that day they've done well and they're working towards a goal.
And are there other tactics you use in the classroom, Melissa, that work well?
So working to make sure that positive reinforcement's happening all the time. But you can praise something very small, but that can mean a lot to the child. Say you've done a terrific job today, or that piece of work looks terrific, that sort of thing, so that the child understands that they are valued and that they're moving forward and they're perceived by their peers in a very positive manner as well. So I think that's very important too. Yeah. But also establishing some of those expectations together. That teachers do that at the beginning of the year. Yeah. Get everyone involved, and so there's ownership over those things too. I think you can do that at home as well in some ways. So talk together at a time that's not in the heat of the moment and establish what's expected in the family and agree upon that and talk about why. Yeah. And then perhaps you need to consider about age appropriate things too. So make it achievable, make it something that they understand and can respond to.
And what do you think about that topic of picking your battles, Mark? Is this an issue too as a parent and as a teacher, do you think?
It certainly is. There are certainly, I guess as teachers and parents, we value resilience very highly.
Yeah.
And that's perhaps a factor in sometimes not interfering with the natural order of things in a family where there might be some sibling rivalry or some conflict at school. There's not always a good reason to step in because in some ways that's not allowing for the development of resilience. The other thing I think that we try and avoid is stress when decisions have to be made. And I think that's why teachers do tend to have a code of conduct that they, if you like, negotiate with the class at the beginning of the year. And they also develop routines that de-stress situations and help the students adapt to what's coming up and what sort of behaviour will be expected.
So it's about setting up some rules, some agreed rules, and setting up some routines. And then what happens, and this is what you do in the classroom, it's also what we can do at home, but what happens when the kids don't play by the rules, Amanda? What do you do?
What do you do? Despair, first of all. No. Well, I think part of setting up the rules is the consequences of what will happen if this happens. So the children already know if this rule is broken. They know, and we've talked about why it's not a good thing to be doing. It relates back to our cares and our responsibility and those sorts of things as well. So there would already be a set, consequence of that sort of happening, those sorts of things happening.
And well, I know that, Melissa, that sometimes parents really struggle with consistency, so the following through with consequences. What's your view on that?
So I think that if you make sure you give yourself time to reflect upon what's happened, it could be a very busy moment in your life too, so you might need to allow yourself the opportunity just to look at what the behaviour was. Is it a really big deal? Is it something small? And can you respond to that in that way? And depending on the age of the child, you can also consider whether or not they will understand you saying, look, at the moment I've got a lot happening, we need to talk about that in a little while. We'll come back and discuss that together. I was also thinking when Mark was talking before about children can often have the understanding and the solution themselves and the consequences themselves. So actually giving them the opportunity to talk about that and what do you think happened there and what do you think we should do about that if time allows the opportunity as well. And that acknowledges their position in these things and also their ability to problem solve as well and find their way through.
No, that's great. Do you think are there any other tips you think we've missed out on, Mark?
We haven't really mentioned the proactive sense of behaviour management, but look, it's really important to anticipate, and I think the example of children at the checkout is a really good one because we know what to expect. So we can, by anticipating that, we can talk about the situation that we're going to be in as a parent and as a child, and that can help formulate a response that just prepares. So there's not the big reactive necessity.
Checkout at 5 o'clock.
And I think that is a good example because every parent faces it, and the consistency is never clearer than we weaken once and we create a problem that keeps recurring. So being proactive as much as possible helps with consistency. Because you've thought a situation through.
And it's really about teaching more than punishing, isn't it? That's what we're trying to do when we're disciplining. Would you agree, Amanda?
Definitely, and I think sometimes too you get bad behaviour when there's other things going on in a child's life as well. So it's not just as simple as what has happened in front of you or what you've witnessed or what someone's told you that something's happened. Often there can be other things happening in a child's life which they're reacting to. So I think, and that's part of the stepping back and having a moment and actually really thinking clearly about what's going on. That there may be other triggers which are causing that.
And then Melissa, you talked about actually stating what your child's experiencing, which helps them to learn what's going on.
especially with younger children, helping them with the language to identify how they're feeling and how you're feeling, and that acknowledges that what they're feeling is normal and that it happens to other people, and even if they're feeling disappointed in themselves, that it could be a momentary lapse of concentration or attention to that particular detail. I think that's very much
see you're feeling sad. It starts the conversation.
And then I feel sad too about that same thing, and what can we do about it. But I was also thinking about it's important to be able to move on. So once you've dealt with the situation, to be able to consciously say to yourself, okay, so we've worked through this, I need to get back on track, and this will help my child to see that we're getting back on track and we're leaving that in the past. So
excellent. Well, there's been so many great tips. Thank you all very much. I hope that you found that valuable. I think the key tips that I really took away were that, first of all, what we're trying to do with discipline and behaviour is to teach our kids what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. It's not about them being bad or naughty. It's about teaching them about what we expect from them. It really helps if we know what our family values are, our family routines and rules, and they're things that you can discuss with your children. And I think the consistency is much easier when you know what your values, your rules and your routines are. And then it's also about trying to catch our kids being good, and having that expectation that they do want to be good kids, and so helping them to achieve that. So thank you for joining us on this episode talking about behaviour and discipline. I hope that it's helped you to use some tips that you can use at home with your kids, and to take some of the tricks that the teachers use that you can use at home. Thank you.